Welcome to Universal Man, where we turn your flight into fight so that you can master yourself and conquer your goals. My name is Mark Weppett, and I am here to help you sharpen your masculine edge so that you can cut through the resistance that's holding you back from living on the front lines of life and being a man that you admire. And today, I've got another episode of the Sexual Self-Mastery series for you. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to go through the rebooting process while you are in a relationship. And I think that this is a very important topic because it's one that a lot of guys get really wrong, and it causes a lot of pain for their partners and also tends to cause more relapse for them. So if you want to avoid all of that, then this is the video for you. Most guys struggle to quit porn because they aren't building the right habits to replace porn. If you want to learn the simple habit replacement system I've used to help thousands of men quit porn and develop self-mastery, then click the link in the description below and download my free Reboot Regimen guide. Okay, before we go any further here, I just want to start with saying that I have the assumption here that you're going to be doing a hard mode reboot, okay? Because that is the best kind of reboot. And for those of you who don't know, hard mode means that you're doing a period of complete abstinence for at least, I would recommend at least like 90 days, okay? You can wiggle it around if you're really desperate in one way or the other, but like, try and go 90 days complete hard mode, meaning complete abstinence, no porn, no sex, no masturbation. And this is important because since we're talking about the relationship aspect, that whole no sex piece, okay? And if you want to understand more about why I recommend this, then make sure you go watch the Sexual Self-Mastery episode on that because it's critical. I also have one more point that I want to make before I start getting into the specifics of the, how to handle this in a relationship. And that is that everyone's different. There's always going to be exceptions, and I'm going to be speaking in generalities here. What I'm going to be saying is going to hold true for most of you, but I do acknowledge that there are always going to be some exceptional people or people who are just different. And, because of that, your best path forward might look different than what I'm saying. But you should at least factor in the stuff that I'm going to be introducing here because it's pretty important. Okay, now with those things out of the way, let's start diving into it. And I want to get started with looking at what I see to be the most common situation. And the most common situation is one where your partner is really not okay with you using porn. Okay, this is, the typical girlfriend or wife who is pissed. Or would be pissed if they knew you were using porn, okay? So first thing is if you're doing a hard mode reboot, well, you're probably gonna have to talk to them, right? You're probably gonna have to tell them, hey, this is my issue and I gotta go through this hard mode reboot, so because of that, we're not gonna be having sex, okay? So, I'm not even gonna talk about what to do if your partner doesn't know, because in that case, you're not doing hard mode and you're not following the plan anyway, so I don't really know how well you're gonna do, plain and simple. So here's the assumption that they know that you're going through this and they're really pissed about it. Usually what ends up happening is that they found out about it in some way or another, all right? They caught you or, you came clean to them. And so there's often a lot of pain here, a lot of pain. A lot of women experience it almost as if they were cheated on. And it's kind of weird for a guy to to think about it like that. It's like, oh, it's porn, because a lot of guys have been using porn as commonly as they've been brushing their teeth, sometimes even more than that, for years and years and years. So they don't see it as cheating. But for your significant other to find out that you've been pleasuring yourself while looking at other women kind of feels pretty similar. And so often there's a huge amount of pain and frustration here that I think is understandable. It's understandable. And it's something that we have to kind of respond to properly, okay? And so I want to start my recommendations here by talking about the things you should do. And then we'll get into some of the stuff maybe you shouldn't do, okay? So the first thing you got to do is you got to take ownership. You got to say, yeah, all right, I've got this problem. This is what I'm doing. I don't think it's okay. And here's what I'm going to be doing about it to fix it, okay? They want to hear that you acknowledge that it's not good. And they also want to know that you're doing something to make it better, all right? That's going to help them deal with some of this upset. And what you can do is you can let them in on the process. You can tell them what's going on, like educate them. Educate them about porn addiction, right? Tell them about how it affects your brain, how it screws you up. Send them to yourbrainonporn.com and let them watch some of the videos. And then explain to them like, hey, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was just being kind of like a normal dude as far as I could tell, and I didn't realize it was going to be so addictive and so destructive and, hook me in this much. And, you're not trying to just get sympathy here. You're just telling them the truth. It's not like you were maliciously thinking, I hate my wife, so I'm going to look at some porn. Maybe there were some moments of that, but that's usually after the habit has already been built, and likely there was some, relationship issues along the way. So, let them in on what's going on, because if they just think that some women actually, they just don't have an understanding of how this stuff works. And so they literally think that you're basically just cheating on them, and that like you're choosing to cheat on them. And it's not that simple. It's not that straightforward. It's like, it's an addiction. It's like a drug dealer sitting in your pocket all the time, right? It's a very weird sort of dynamic, and it's difficult for women to wrap their head around that initially, but I think most of them can. Most of them get it once they're able to kind of see it explained in a rational way. Now, this won't necessarily make them feel much better, but they can see, okay, here's the problem for what it is, and then explain to them your solution. Talk to them about how you're going to be going through this rebooting process, about how it's going to rewire your brain, about how you found my videos. Talk about maybe join a community. Join my community. I recommend that, but there's plenty of good ones out there if you don't want to do mine. And show that you're getting something done. Like if you want to be really serious and like the things are really bad, get a coach. Like me. I will coach you. And one-on-one coaching is super serious. Like I can't tell you how many, older married men I've had, come on and they're like, hey, this is ruining my marriage. We're at our wit's end. I can't seem to quit. Let's do this. And then we do it. So it's like taking action is hugely important. And then informing them of those actions is hugely important. Also, if she's very upset about it, then I would encourage you to encourage her to go join one of the support forums for partners of a porn addict. Okay, and those exist. I know specifically over at nofap.com, in that forum, they have one for partners, and it's great because it can be very difficult. If you're watching this video, then chances are you're actually putting your partner in a much better situation, because I can't tell you the number of emails I've gotten from women who are saying like, my husband watches porn, he thinks it's okay, he's not going to do anything about it. So at least if you're watching this, then you're already putting them in a better situation. So but still they might want some help. Now I want to talk about the things that you probably shouldn't do. And again, like I said earlier, there's going to be exceptions, but this is something to consider. Okay. A lot of times when I see, couples open up and start connecting start talking about this recovery process, what ends up initially getting formed is some sort of dysfunctional accountability to your partner. And what I mean by this is that it's like your partner basically keeps checking in on you. They're like, hey, are you clean? Did you relapse? Did you use porn? Did you use porn? Hey, are you clean? And they're like they're basically trying to muscle you through recovery through emotional pressure. They're trying to kind of almost, force you to fix this issue by checking in on you. And even if this works, it's not going to work because you will be recovering on their power rather than your power. But more often than not, what happens is that it actually makes things worse, because you end up lying to them because maybe you do slip. Relapse is part of recovery for most guys. And so they're going to get really upset, and they ask you, and you don't want to get them really upset because you're making progress, but you just had a slip. So you're like, no, everything's fine. And then, it turns out they had already searched your internet history and they found out you relapsed and it was just a test, and now it's just a huge fight, and it's and it's bad, and it's really bad. And so you really want to avoid that dynamic. So the way in which I recommend setting it up with your partner is kind of like a don't ask, don't tell with mutual check-ins. Meaning like the way I set it up with my, then fiance, I think we were engaged at that point. I mean, now we're married, but like the way we set it up was pretty much like she didn't really ask me about it. And because she didn't want to necessarily hear that I relapsed. And I respected that. And I didn't want to tell her. And it doesn't mean that we wanted a dishonesty here, but it's just that your partner doesn't need to know all the nitty-gritty details. They don't need to know what kind of porn you watch. They don't need to know this, that, or the other, because a lot of that stuff is disingenuous. It forms up unconsciously. It's not a real representation of who you are. And so letting them in on all that stuff oftentimes just causes tremendous amount of pain. And if you relapse and you're actually working the relapse properly, you're learning how to grow from it, which is something that I'm going to be covering in a following sexual self-mastery series episode, then it's kind of not okay, but it's something that's moving in a positive direction. And when there's all these emotions and hurt involved, it ends up just being about the hurt, and then you just, not want to address it. You beat yourself up more, which can lead to more relapses and all that kind of stuff. So, if I were you, I would try and set it up with them and be like, hey, I don't want you checking in on me. I don't want to have to hurt you anymore. I'm going to be doing my very best, but relapse is sometimes a part of this. If you ask, I will tell you, but please just don't ask too much. All right. And that, I think, is a fair request, because they don't technically have a right to know all of your inner sexual workings. That's something that you have to share based upon what you believe is really going to be best for you. At the same time, don't set up a dynamic of lying. So hopefully this has given you some context on how to maybe handle a recovery process with a partner who's really hurt by your porn use. Now we're going to look at a different scenario. And this is a scenario where the partner is really hurt, but they're trying to be really supportive. They're trying to not show you any hurt. They're just trying to show you complete compassion and support, but it's tearing them up, okay? And this pretty much follows the same pattern, all right? The only thing that ends up, that you got to watch out for is, maybe you can open up a little bit more. You can be a little bit more vulnerable, let them in to the process a little bit more. But even then, I'd be a little bit hesitant of it, because a lot of times women in this situation, they are opening themselves up and being compassionate because they think it's the thing that's going to give you the best recovery. And I've not necessarily been able to tell if that's true or not. I think most guys, they need to learn how to sack up and manage themselves. And it's not necessarily that they need a lot of softness from someone else, because they don't necessarily need a lot of harshness. They just don't need a lot of really anything necessarily from their partner. It's very much a self-management issue. And so what you got to watch out for is the partners that will kind of open themselves up for daggers because they think it's going to help you. And if it's not really going to help you, then don't put those daggers in there, okay? Even if they're asking for them, and try and create that healthy distance between them and your recovery. And something I should have mentioned earlier is you do need accountability. You do need people to talk to about this issue. Just make sure that it's with peers. Make sure it's with other guys. That's why I think joining a community is so important, because you do need support, you do need compassion, you do need people who can understand you, but chances are your partner can't be that person. Now, there's two other sort of scenarios here that I want to hit on kind of quick, because they're less rare, but I think they're worth addressing. All right, so the first one is your partner doesn't care that you use porn so much, but they also have sexual aversion, okay? And so in this scenario, sure, hard mode's easy for them. They might actually they might actually be against it because they see porn as kind of taking sexual pressure off of them. And that's sometimes why women are okay with porn, is because they got hangups around their sexuality. And so because of that, they're like, yeah, you have that outlet, because I don't want to have responsibility for all that, desire of yours. And that can be tied to some very painful stuff, sexless marriages and, sexual disconnect, intimate disconnect between partners can be absurdly painful, especially for a guy. Well, for a girl too. I hear it go both ways, but it can be absurdly painful. And so just know that, yeah, all right, maybe focus on the reboot right now, focus on the hard mode, get through it, quit the porn. But if one of the reasons why you turned to porn is because your partner shut you down sexually, they just refused to be there for you, and so you turned to porn kind of out of loneliness and sexual rejection, well, then there's issues there that need to be resolved. And so I would recommend getting some counseling, because that's a very difficult thing to try and take on your own, all right? And it's not something you should stay in, and it's just a tough thing. So that's one whole big kind of can of worms that I can't go in depth on here, but just know that you might need to get additional help if that's part of your dynamic. And then the final scenario is your partner doesn't care if you use porn, and they also want to have lots of sex. And so many of you might think, oh, that's the dream mode. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. But usually the girls who fall into this category are not necessarily the ones that make for the best long-term relationships anyway, because they've embraced a rather pornified sexuality to begin with. And I think that kind of sexual belief system is very difficult to build a healthy long-term relationship with. And so, your big challenge here is going to be doing hard mode with this partner. They're going to be putting a lot of pressure on you for sex and that sort of thing. And, you just got to figure out what you want. All right. What's actually best for you? And this can be like, I'm going to be honest, chances are you're going to probably just try and make it work having sex with them first. But after you try that and you realize it doesn't work and it's not making your life better and you're filled with all this pressure and resentment and feeling controlled and that sort of thing, then you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to just do the hard mode? And do you want to make, if she really cares about you, she's going to be okay with it and she's going to be on board with it, even if she's not happy about it. But, if she's not on board with it, she's going to put her sexual desire over your best interest, then you got a bad situation there, right? And you should probably get out of it anyway. So just wanted to mention that. So those are the main kind of relationship dynamics that I wanted to talk about. But now I want to explore what it is that you should be doing with your partner. If you're not going to be having sex with them, well, what should you be doing? Well, at the heart of it, you want to be connecting with them as a person, okay? And really, you can look at Reboot as an awesome opportunity to rekindle your more authentic romance. Like, what porn tends to do is it removes all of the normal courtship behaviors around sexual romantic interaction, and it just focuses in on that penetrative act and the orgasm, okay? But human sexuality is far more nuanced than that, and there's far much more depth to it. And by taking a break from porn, you can focus on rebuilding that intimate foundation with your partner. And so connect with them mentally and emotionally. Like, actually talk to them. Get in the habit of actually talking to them as a person, explore your interests, explore your beliefs, your fears, your hopes, your worries, all that kind of stuff that you should do with a partner. Do that with them. Make time to spend with them. And then from there, flirt with them, date them, start to slowly incorporate, more physical intimacy. Like, start with just holding hands, hugs, cuddling, snuggling, that kind of stuff. All right. And that you don't want to take it too far because that can make doing hard mode pretty difficult. But it's really great to rebuild that kind of stuff because, like I said, for so many guys who struggle with porn, all that stuff has just kind of atrophied and died. And so let this be a place and a time where you can restoke that sort of connection with your partner. And if you're running into like flat lines and issues and stuff like that, then it's not going to be a smooth, completely easy ride. But that's the general approach, is that you want to be doing intimacy, just not penetrative intimacy, not, dry humping, like super intense crap. Just like keep it in your pants and learn how to hold that tension. You're going to find that if you can learn how to hold that tension and direct it at them, you're going to feel far more attracted to them than, probably you have in a long time. So this is a really great chance for you and your partner to transform your relationship. I know I've heard so many times over and over again, relationships being completely just like revivified through this process of quitting porn and then just devoting yourselves to a more holistic romance. So you can do this. It can be very tough. It was very tough to rebuild the trust and the connection between me and my wife. And it took a while, and you have to be willing to give it a while. Because, you used porn for a while. So because of that, it's going to take some time to all the rewiring and reconfiguration and reframing to happen on both sides. So just let yourself go on this journey. It will be tough, but I can guarantee that it'll be ultra worth it. So that's what I have for you guys today. Hope you found this useful. Stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, if you found this episode useful and you want to hear more, make sure you like, subscribe, and if you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you hit that bell button to turn on notifications. But if you really like this content and you would like to join the tribe of Universal Men, then you need to head on over to the Universal Man Patreon page by clicking the link in the description. We call ourselves the Vanguard because we are committed to living on the front lines of life. By joining, you'll gain access to exclusive content, weekly accountability, community chat rooms, and live calls. Also, by joining the Vanguard, you become a part of my inner circle. Therefore, you get my prioritized attention. Most importantly, though, you'll be joining a crew of like-minded guys that can help support and inspire you on your journey of masculine self-mastery. So click the link below and sign up today.